How many times have you been told that the future is just around the corner, only to find yourself standing on the same street corner, years later waiting for a revolution that never arrives? In the world of technology, specifically the world of electric vehicles, we have been fed a steady diet of promises regarding the solid-state battery, miracle of chemistry that is supposed to make our current cars look like ancient steam engines. We have seen the glossy slides, heard the ambitious timelines, and watched as the years 2020, 2022, and 2024 passed by without a single mass-produced cell hitting the pavement. But as we navigate the landscape of 2025, something has fundamentally shifted in the atmosphere, and it is not just another press release. The air feels heavier with the weight of real machinery, and the conversation is no longer about if this technology can exist, but whether it can survive the brutal, unforgiving reality of the open road. Before we dive into the complex architecture of this energy revolution, I want to ask you a question. Are you ready to stop believing in miracles and start understanding the engineering of reality? If you value the truth behind the hype, take a moment to subscribe to this channel and join us as we deconstruct the future, one layer at a time. For nearly a decade, the headlines surrounding solid-state batteries have functioned as a form of psychological conditioning, training the public to expect inevitable delays. We became accustomed to the 5-year-away syndrome, where every breakthrough was perpetually half a decade from reaching your garage. However, the year 2025 has broken this cycle by changing the very setting of the story. We are no longer looking at colorful PowerPoints in air-conditioned boardrooms. We are looking at pilot production lines where the hum of robotics is replacing the silence of the laboratory. The shift is palpable because we are seeing test cars, not just individual lab cells the size of a postage stamp, and we are seeing genuine pre-orders instead of vague intent letters. This transition represents a move from the theoretical to the industrial, where the primary challenge is no longer the movement of ions, but the movement of a supply chain. The conversation has evolved from a hopeful dream into a cold, hard assessment of whether these cells can endure the vibrations, temperature swings, and daily abuse of a human driver. As we look closer at this evolution, we encounter a significant hurdle known as the label problem, which has created a genuine credibility crisis in the industry. The term solid state has become a victim of its own marketing success, transformed into a broad umbrella that covers a chaotic variety of designs. Today, when a company claims to have a solid-state battery, they might be talking about a semi-solid design, a quasi-solid architecture, or a hybrid system that still contains a significant amount of liquid electrolyte. There is currently no global regulator or shared industry standard to define what truly constitutes a solid battery, leading to a landscape filled with linguistic gymnastics. This lack of precision breeds skepticism among consumers and investors alike, making it difficult to celebrate genuine progress when it is buried under layers of ambiguous terminology. Even when a company achieves a legitimate milestone, the public often meets it with a shrug, wondering if they are being sold another half-measure disguised as a revolution. However, we must ask ourselves if these definitions actually matter to the person behind the steering wheel. For the average driver, the internal chemistry of a battery is far less important than the tangible outcomes of its performance. We care about how fast we can charge on a cold winter morning, how many hundreds of miles we can travel on a single charge, and whether the car is safe if it is involved in a collision. The real metrics of success are charging speed, range, and safety under extreme abuse, regardless of what the internal components are called. A battery that utilizes a small amount of liquid or gel can still be a massive leap forward if it delivers a superior daily experience, compared to a pure solid-state design that might be fragile or expensive. This reframes the entire debate from an ideological quest for chemical purity to a practical pursuit of everyday usability. While the prototypes we see today are undeniably impressive, we must confront a sobering reality check regarding the scale of production. Researchers and industry analysts are quick to warn that a successful pilot line is a world away from a mass production facility capable of feeding millions of vehicles. Forecasts for the coming years suggest that solid-state capacity will remain a tiny fraction of total electric vehicle demand well into the decade of the 2030s. This massive gap highlights the agonizingly slow maturation of factories, the complexity of securing specialized raw materials, and the long cycles required for safety validation. It explains why the first deployments of this technology are skewing toward niche high-end vehicles rather than the affordable cars the general public is waiting for. We are witnessing a slow-motion birth of an industry, where every step forward requires a massive investment of time and capital that cannot be bypassed. History is a relentless teacher, and it has taught us to view new battery promises through a lens of deep skepticism. Repeatedly, major automotive and technology players have missed their self-imposed deadlines, leaving the public conditioned to doubt even the most sincere claims. The central question has shifted from who has the best cell to who can manufacture millions of them cheaply and consistently. The ability to create a perfect battery in a clean-room laboratory is a feat of science, but the ability to replicate that success on an assembly line at a profit is a feat of industrial warfare. Until this manufacturing hurdle is cleared, every claim, no matter how scientifically sound, deserves a high degree of scrutiny from the public. We are no longer looking for geniuses. We are looking for masters of the factory floor who can turn a miracle into a commodity. If you want to see what is real today, you must look at the vehicles actually hitting the pavement, not the white papers sitting on a professor's desk. In 2025, we are seeing concrete signals from companies like SAIC, whose MG4 model is bringing semi-solid technology to a budget-friendly segment. They are prioritizing the immediate benefits of safety and affordability over the long-term goal of chemical purity, proving that good enough is often better than perfect but impossible. Similarly, Mercedes-Benz has conducted long-distance road tests with cells from Factorial, demonstrating that the range gains promised in the lab can survive the unpredictable conditions of real-world driving. These examples show us that the technology is beginning to leak out of the laboratory and into the hands of real people. These cars are the pioneers, the first scouts in a long march toward a new era of energy storage. The transition from theory to reality is being anchored by the massive investments in pilot production lines by companies like QuantumScape, Solid Power, SK On, and Nissan. These organizations are no longer just theorizing about chemical reactions. They are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into repeatable, automated processes. A pilot line is the last gate before mass-market reality, acting as a bridge where manufacturing discipline is applied to experimental chemistry. While schedules still occasionally slip, the presence of physical infrastructure and heavy machinery provides a sense of permanence that was missing in previous years. Money and steel are now anchoring the effort, making it much harder for these projects to simply vanish into the ether like the vaporware of the past. These pilot plants are the training grounds where the future of transportation is being refined and tested for the stresses of the real world. To understand why this process is so slow, we must look at the engineering problems that rarely make the front page headlines. Solid electrolytes bring a host of new trade-offs that are incredibly difficult to manage, such as extreme sensitivity to temperature and a complete intolerance for moisture. These cells often require massive amounts of physical pressure just to function, and they are still prone to the formation of dendrites, which are microscopic needles that can short-circuit a battery from the inside. Solving these intricate issues adds layers of complexity, cost, and weight to the final product, which explains why mass production remains so stubbornly difficult to achieve. The interface between the solid electrolyte and the electrodes is a volatile war zone where contact can be lost as the battery expands and contracts. Every solution to one problem seems to create two more, creating a puzzle that requires the world's best minds to solve. On the maturity curve of modern technology, solid-state batteries are currently in a state of fragmented development. Some projects are still stuck in the early laboratory phase, while others are being field-tested in high-performance prototypes, and pilot plants sit somewhere in the middle. These facilities are essentially expensive experiments, designed to prove a concept rather than guarantee a profit in the short term. Dates like 2028 or 2030 should be viewed as ambitious targets rather than ironclad promises to the consumer. In this high-stakes environment, failure is not necessarily a sign of a scandal or a scam. It is a normal and necessary part of the development reality for a technology this transformative. We must learn to distinguish between the slow pace of progress and the total absence of it. The clear takeaway from the current landscape is that while solid-state technology has not fully arrived for the masses, it has officially left the laboratory. We are entering an era where semi-solid designs will likely reach consumers first, not because they represent the ultimate goal of the technology, but because they are practical and manufacturable today. As industry transparency improves and real-world data begins to replace marketing buzzwords, the average buyer may stop caring what the battery is called. Instead, they will focus on the performance, the ability to drive across a state on a single charge and refill the battery in the time it takes to buy a coffee. The ideology of the pure solid-state battery is giving way to the reality of usable energy storage that works in the real world. We are witnessing the slow, grinding death of hype and the birth of a new, more grounded industrial age. When we look back at the history of human progress, we see that every major shift, from coal to oil, from the horse to the internal combustion engine, was marked by a period of intense skepticism and technical failure. The battery revolution is no different, and the struggles we see today are simply the growing pains of a world trying to reinvent how it moves. We must be patient enough to allow the engineering to catch up with our imaginations, while remaining critical enough to hold companies accountable for their promises. In your own life, you might find a parallel in how you approach your personal goals or your career. It is easy to get caught up in the hype of a new beginning, but the real work happens in the pilot line phase of your life, where you have to turn your ideas into repeatable, daily habits. Success is rarely a sudden breakthrough. It is usually the result of solving 1,000 small, unglamorous problems until the vision becomes a reality. As we move forward into the rest of 2025 and beyond, I encourage you to look past the labels and the headlines. Ask the hard questions about performance, scale, and reliability in every part of your life, not just in the technology you buy. How do you handle the gap between what you are promised and what is actually delivered? Do you value the purity of an idea more than its practical application in your daily existence? I want to thank you for spending this time with us as we explore the intricate and often frustrating world of energy storage. If this deep dive gave you a new perspective on the future of transportation, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below.